When most people think about wrestling video games, they tend to stay in the realm of the latest game to come out, or maybe even nostalgic titles they played long ago. To this day, games from the Nintendo 64 are praised for their wrestling titles and the ability to pick them up and play for some fun, even today. One thing that can make these games even more replayable is the presence of mods for your games. When you think mods, the first stuff that comes to mind are probably those wild additions to Skyrim, like the Macho Man Dragon or any of the other absurd changes you can make to your game files to enhance or tailor your experience to your liking. As big as mods are for video games, you would think that there would be a big world of mods for the world of wrestling video games, and you would be right. It's just probably not the world you would expect.
I run a Discord that I have an all-seeing eye and I know everything that's going on. We just said this about 10, 15 minutes ago. Everybody has their breaking point. So whatever the fuck was 100%. Going on with this kid, because I do remember there was some type of argument or something like that went on maybe about a week or so with this kid. And the kid was saying all kinds of stuff. I guess that's the way the conversation ended. Now, Ben, here's my stance on the shit.
Right.
If a person comes up randomly and says, just been threatening to kill a guy. He's a murderer. You ain't actually murdered that guy.
No,
is that right for me to pick up and call you a murderer?
No.
This is the point that I was bringing up to him earlier, and he acknowledged that it could have been a threat. Now, that's not saying that the threat is correct at all. And if that's what, and from the screenshot I seen, at least on this dude's profile, apparently Matt did make that threat, which is something that needs to be addressed. If I'm over here talking to him, how am I taking care
Rips,
of when I'm...
Who the fuck is going to address it if not you?
Mods have been a thing in wrestling games for a pretty long time. 20 years ago, you would find full conversion mods of Nintendo 64 games turning WWF No Mercy into a Ring of Honor vs. TNA game. Stuff like this would come out for many wrestling games over the years and would be a somewhat vibrant scene for the better part of 20 years. There has always been so many characters and so many promotions to pull from that mods were just a perfect fit to continue these games' lifespans long after support was finished and the next installment of the games had come along. This would become a much more noticeable phenomenon when the 2K era of the WWE games began. There was a large base of people buying the games, and for the first time, the WWE games were coming to the Steam platform and going out to a wider audience on PC. WWE games and wrestling games had been on PC before, but never in such a widely distributed manner that would facilitate such an explosion in the modding community, allowing it to really take form. When the WWE 2K game showed up on Steam, the floodgates were opened and many websites and forums would see a big boost from the growing community of people wanting to mod their wrestling game to their liking. This would begin essentially a golden age of wrestling mods being made, well referred to as the Smack Talks era. From this time of WWE 2K15 through WWE 2K18, the place to be for mods on those games was a site called Smack Talks. The Smack Talks forums were full of mods from many different creators very quickly, and through the years, It would have many different modders reach different statuses to where over time a hierarchy was formed. One of the bigger controversies would be the man going by Dennis, who would be ran off the site because he was charging for access to his mods. You see, this was frowned upon, and Smack Talks had a very serious stance on this. This will be important later. With the failure of WWE 2K20, WWE 2K19 was given extra years of life while the WWE figured out what to do with their game series. It's likely that 2K19 had one of the longest lifespans we will see on a modern wrestling game. This would lead to more modders joining the community and more mods getting made. After a few years, some of the creators began to consider moving their links to Patreon and just posting previews on the forums. Matt and JN were both longtime modders who had been contributing mods on a near weekly basis, an insane output realistically. An example of their output was that they posted one participant from the 1992 Royal Rumble every day for a month. 30 mods in 30 days was a big undertaking, and they did all of that and posted it for free. Sometime a little after the two of them began to think about charging for their work through Patreon and didn't see much wrong with it at all. This was met with the opposite of acceptance. New forum post, new rules, and a few sanctions were put into place to make sure to discourage this type of behavior. Matt and JN found it massively unfair, as they had seen other modders like Tekken sell their tools to make mods and really didn't see this as very different. But the consensus was there. No one wanted any part of this to be allowed, and they were willing to kick people out of the community for trying it. Some of the players that would come into play here would become a fellow who would soon be viewed as an eternal hall monitor in Joey Magnum. Joey would become an admin for the Smack Talks forum and become well known for quickly flexing his authority. Joey would be the one to step in and begin admonishing the Patreon attempts and even pen a post on the Smack Talks forum making sure everyone knew what the stance was on Patreons. Another player who began to make his play around this time was a fellow who went by J Manny, and he would post mods like 2K88 that would turn your game into an 80s and early 90s wrestling game, complete with commentators, arenas, and the works. This was pretty successful, but he would quickly change his handle to B4G TV and rename the project into Eras. He had formulated a plan, and this plan would also change the commentary files for the game, totally getting all the new sounds out of the game and adding in the voices of Gorilla Monsoon, Vince McMahon, Bobby Heenan, and other classic announcers. This would basically erase any trace of the game not being a Legends-based game, and many people were clamoring for it. J Manny was aware of this and made sure to make the moves he could to carve out a piece of the pie for himself. The way he saw it, if he were able to get enough people to pay him on a Patreon and commissions, he would simply pay someone to do the work he promised to do. Outsourcing is a practice as old as any other, and in principle, there isn't anything wrong with someone outsourcing. This realistically should work out, and in short order, everyone be able to play the newly reworked video game. He would begin to form a group around himself and another group that had broken off to form another website called 2KM at the time, but would later change to PWM. This group would soon get the idea to move all of their mods off of Smack Talks and over to the PWM site, while pushing Patreons and monetization as the new normal there. Jay Manny would push this quite a bit to the new group as the way to move forward with things. He would get large Patreons and commissions that he would use to outsource the work on, and things would go smoothly for a long period of time. Mostly. Manny would run into an issue with one of the larger Patreons who had allegedly paid $3,000 for the commentator mod. The insanity of paying $3,000 for some voice recordings to most seems absurd, but this is a person that Jay Manny had found. The only issue was that the project took a bit too long, and he would wake up one day to see the person had charged him back, and now Jay Manny was out of the money he had promised to pay to get the work done via outsourcing, and now was unable to keep the promise of getting the project done at all. The issue that Jay Manny would run into is that he wasn't able to actually do any of the things he was promising to the Eras project. He couldn't do arenas. He couldn't do sound reworks. He couldn't deliver it because he was having trouble finding someone to take on the cost of the work. At one point during all of this, Jay Manny would even contact his channel asking for the $3,000 in hopes to try and pull the project together at the time. He had made a lot of promises to try to get it done, and it was all falling apart behind the scenes. B4G TV would continue to advertise that he would get the project done for the next several years, but this isn't the last we'll hear of B4G TV. Now that there was a conflict with Smack Talks refusing to budge on allowing Patreons and charging for mods, the alternative was now trying to take hold. Odd enough, Admin Joey would become an admin for the 2KM PWM as well. PWM was ran by a fellow named Rips, and Rips was very keen to take on this new model of monetizing the mods as if they were DLC packs. PWM would slowly begin to take the spot as the main place to get wrestling game mods, and this was hard for a few people to go along with. Matt22, who was the guy that had tried to start a Patreon before on Smack Talks, had since decided to just post on Smack Talks, and even if everyone else left the forums, he would just post his work there. The PWM crowd would regularly have a go at him in the Discord servers for these websites. Matt22 was only in the Smack Talk server, which had slowed down considerably since the opening of PWM. These were public servers full of minors, and yet for some reason Matt22 was spamming with pornographic photos in that server by an admin of the PWM server called MattFink. Why this admin of PWM was posting porn in a server that was full of minors is a question anyone would ask, but instead of asking that question, Joey the admin simply deleted it all when it was questioned and timed out the person who questioned it. How do I know the person who questioned this was penalized? Because it was the person who runs this channel that was penalized and subsequently kicked from the server when it was called out. MattFink is a strange character in all of this. He is probably known for doing the worst shit in all the community, but is allowed to do so because he is one of the only people who will make arenas for the video games. MattFink has been accused of stealing work, doxing minors, and we have even seen ourselves where he has posted porn in a Discord server full of minors. But for some reason, this guy is still around and even in positions of power in these communities. Some people will always value what they can get over decency. MattFink would get caught up in a situation that would ramp up into how obvious the issues were in the community in 2022, and this would spiral into a way bigger issue for the PWM side of things. A creator named 2K Live would part ways with the PWM faction and begin his own venture. This was met with hostility from PWM, but even more interesting is it would lead to 2K Live outing Matt Fink for stealing his graphics for his arenas. This is a big deal among creators in this space, and it's one of the things that gets you booted from the community in most cases. 2K Live had been accused of similar, and they went out of their way to try to ruin his reputation over it, even after he proved it was not the case. So imagine his shock when he finds out that the people who were trashing his reputation are now doing the exact thing they accused him of, to bury him to the community. Surely you would think that this would lead to someone, especially someone who had done all the things Matt Fink had done prior, to be shown the door, but this was not the case, however. What would happen instead is that Rips, the owner of PWM, would agree to pay out a financial settlement to the person that Matt Fink stole from. Matt didn't pay it, Rips jumped in to pay it. This makes next to no sense until you look at their business models. It's going to be hard to get people to buy into your Patreons for arenas if your arena guy is gone for stealing, doxing, posting pornography in servers with minors.
Now, name me one community member. All these new motherfuckers that come in, they stealing textures, they stealing bases, and so on and so forth.
Rips.
Who's had to pay a fine?
Rips.
Like, because it's usually not that deep. Who's had to pay a fine? This dude just paid $150 out of his pocket to reimburse. I paid it up front. He said that's not right. Now he acknowledged, oh, it could have been a threat, but that still does not make it right. Then he goes back to, no, he's doxing. So is it he doxing, or it's possible he made a threat? Which way are we taking care of?
Rips, which one are your admins allowed to do on the website? That's the best question.
Information.
Rips, the best question is, which one are admins allowed to do on your website? Are they allowed to threaten people with their information, or are they allowed to just put it out? Which one are they allowed to do?
But I was talking to Ben real quick.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Kid's name, so I can talk to him.
This is super simple. Is it okay or not okay?
Like you just said, it's simple.
Rips,
send me his name.
Is it okay or not okay to threaten the users of the ProWrestlingMods.io website with their personal information? Yes or no? Will they remain on staff if they do so? Yay or nay?
Anyways, Ben.
This is what we've been trying to tell you the whole time.
I'm trying to tell you for about a half a year, I think.
And it wasn't even that big of a problem until he was put on the staff team.
Yeah, people overlooked it.
Which it was ignored the entire time he was off the staff team.
Yeah, when he was off
Wait.
the staff.
All right, so this happened how long ago?
Well, there's recent ones and then there's old ones.
I was saying because Matt's been on the staff for about a year.
Yeah, but there's old ones that have been shown, and then there's
wait. So
there's more recent ones.
There's other people?
Not from the screenshots that I've seen, but there's definitely been others. I've heard.
What the fuck?
That's why I'm saying that this whole thing became an issue because somebody started talking about it more, and then evidence started coming out about it, and then there was more recent ones which made people even more pissed at why he was on the staff team. And that's been the huge problem with it. People have been banned for way less. People making fucking Alta tires have definitely been fucking banned. Just changing shit have been banned from PWM. But yeah, this type of shit should not be lower than fucking making an alternate attire and then publishing it.
So you can send me screenshots of everything else, but you don't want to send me screenshots to confirm that. Oh my god. He actually doxed this kid.
He confirmed it himself.
What are you doing? You have that screenshot. He's admitting it on Twitter.
His conversation and the threat to the kid. You acknowledge that.
Okay, all right, hold on. Are you allowed to threaten people with their info if you're an admin for PWM?
Now let's rewind back to the conversation.
Why are we rewinding? This is a simple yes or no. Rips, again, this is a yes or no. This is why nobody can fucking stand you people. Yes or no?
Jesus Christ, man, can I fucking talk, man?
Can you say yes or no?
I'm gonna get this shit out.
It's a super simple question. Are the admins and mods of your website allowed to threaten people with their personal information and remain on your staff? Yes or no?
Everybody has a fucking breaking point.
When I first joined the 2K modding community, I was right around 14 years old, and I was just looking for some help for 2K19, how to install arenas, I think. And a guy called Core Dream Studio reaches out to me, and we talk a bit. He invites me into a Discord server that gives me the help I needed. And in that Discord server, I find a few people that I hit it off with. I talked to. They taught me about modding. It was a good time. I was having a very nice time, and so I get told about Mathic doxing children. So I was like, oh, and I went to his Twitter to tweet about it, to tweet under his post about him doxing children and shit. Note that my account had literally 0 followers on it, and it was really freshly minted, so ain't nobody seeing that apart from Mathic. So yeah, time passes by. We exchange messages. He tries negotiating me deleting the tweets. I was like, well, that's bullshit. And yeah, some time passes by, and I get a message all of a sudden. Hey, is this you? I was apparently Mathic's alt account posting my photos of me playing basketball and 7-year-old me fucking about with a phone, fucking figuring out how selfies work. So I was creeped out. I didn't want to really associate with the modding community after that. I was like really dejected from modding for a good bit of time. Then I just realized that he's just an old cringy man that doxes kids in his free time. I don't know. He's just weird. He's a weird, creepy old cringy man.
One story that shines a light on the owner, Rips, covering for the bad actions, came when Matt Fink again was harassing a child in the community, and Rips went out of his way to try and negotiate the child's silence on behalf of Matt Fink. The kid had made fun of Matt Fink and the rumors of him doxing children, so he in turn threatened the boy with his dox and posted it in the Discord servers. The young fellow would go back and forth with Rips, but in the end elected to stay away from modding, but not before delivering quite a line to Rips in passing. During Rip's attempt to lecture the minor on what he was doing wrong to get harassed by his staff, he explained that it's just something you would understand more as you go through life. The young man would reply, "What part of going through life includes doxing, harassing, and threatening minors? Because I don't want to live that life." The conversation would end with the minor thanking Rips and his staff for encouraging him to get off of social media. This was the peak for a while. The drama more or less died down while PWN would ban more and more people and lead to more and more people splintering off and making their own marketplaces. Before you knew it, there were 100 Patreons, and it becomes so blatantly monetized and stuck to mimicking DLC that it had very much begun to come out in DLC packs. New games would come out, and for each new game you would need to buy a tool to mod the game from a Patreon who even began putting the mods into your game. And not just one-time purchases either, because these tools had to constantly stay updated, so you would be paying for that Patreon as long as you wanted your mods to work. This priced out a healthy amount of people, but this model was still able to keep enough people around to have a sizable income. The frequent thing you would see with PWM is the pushing of the B4G's Patreon, which at this point on was 4 years and still no commentary. They were all friendly and they were all making a decent income on this model that they had carved out for themselves. One of the bigger participants in this was a guy named Grix, who was the person who headed up making the mod you need to install mods element of the things, and he was very protective of it. He would often have people go to Discords to monitor them and see if anyone posted his work. This will become important later. Earlier this year, 2K Games banned a fellow for leaking their game models among other things. He was a well-known member of the community, and many were quick to jump to his side. After all, who would get mad at someone for leaking files? This would lead to one of the weirdest interviews to anyone who has followed these things for a period of time. Grix would go at the WWE 2K dev team for allowing not safe for work content on the community creations because kids can see it.
Pornographic is one thing. That's one thing. But the other thing is, if you even search most downloaded for Rhea Ripley, there was one with or goodies out. All of it. The model, like they had like these blue like tapes on the goodies. We're gonna use that term here. But it's up, and it's been up since March. Like you cannot tell me, oh well, they didn't see it.
Right?
Yeah, you are a AAA company, like that was stated here. You have to be on top of these things. Kids play these games, but it's never like that. It's just it's on me. And okay, well, I'm the most popular guy. Fair, that's fine, that's okay. But if I take a hit, it's unfair that those other modders don't take hits. It's just the reality. I'm not a shot to anybody. I appreciate what everyone does for the communication, and I don't think the stuff should be taken down when it comes to modding the game to improve it.
Yeah.
But I have to take the hit.
It's the principle of it, essentially.
I just want to segue back to how extreme the content is on there. Yesterday, I saw a Soraya, and I'm going to say it.
Go ahead.
She was fully nude, nipples, VJJ, everything, and she was covered in cum. Right? You can't tell me that shouldn't be deleted.
That's ridiculous. This is a PG-13 product, and it's a teen-rated game.
Me personally,
how would the ESRB feel?
I deem those people who upload that stuff as predators, potential predators. They disgust me.
Ignoring the fact that Grix is famous for a mod of a giant purple dildo that he puts into every game and proudly displayed on PWM, where kids can see it. Grix would go on this interview and praise the person who leaked files and even talk up how much he loved the game in an effort to sway the public. Never mind that if you leaked his files, he would send strange people after you who may or may not be on certain lists. That's right, a registered offender happens to be one of the people working with Grix and going after minors who post it without their permission. Remember earlier when we mentioned that B4G would come up again? Well, this is that part. Over a short period of time in 2024, B4G would go dark, doing even more nothing than usual. This would open up the floodgates on him as people finally began to put it together that it's been years and he never made the sound mod for 2K19, 2K20, 2K22, 2K23, and so on. Things began to fall into disarray for him. He would begin to swing wildly on Twitter at everyone involved with the Discovery Project. He would call out Chainsaw Charlie, an OnlyFans creator who dabbles in modding, for his racism. And that would usually be enough, but it was during this time and B4G retweeting a fellow named Banshee who had discovered that the Core Dream Studio was on the registry. This was a total shitstorm, as could be expected, and soon after, B4G would take all of it down. Things just seemed gross after this situation to a lot of people. Everyone was spending so much time trying to nickel and dime, mostly kids, for mods, and were ignoring that they were letting some of the worst people possible around those minors that they were trying to profit off of. It had turned into a weird clique of pseudo-celebrities who forgot that they were just making virtual dolls of wrestlers to play with in a game that most would have put down the next year. all of this was going on, and all the unfulfilled promises just turned so many people off of things. What makes it sad is that while PWM and many others were giving B4G all this attention and gaining him Patreon dollars for doing nothing but unsuccessfully outsourcing, there was a guy who was making what Eras was supposed to be this whole time, and he was kicked from PWM.
I was kicked from PWM for bringing up some of the situations in the video that you have watched, because I felt it was wrong, and because I brought it up too much or was a whistleblower, I was excommunicated from the island, actually everywhere. So I've been working on this project to replace the sound of the games by myself for years. No Patreon, no donations, no one but me and my effort. It's not complete, but quite close.
You know, if you want to be fair to Flair, you gotta be fair and say that's a heck of a rope. Only a man as fair as Flair would show up at WrestleMania. Will you stop? What are you talking? Yell at me?
I've spent a lot of time on it, and it's a labor of my enjoyment of the games. I've been watching a lot of old wrestling to get the clips that I needed, and putting them in through our sound editor done by the Visitor X, which I appreciate him and his work. He's one of the unsung heroes that, you know, does it because he loves it. And I could have absolutely charged and went the route that the community has decided to go throughout these years, and I just didn't want to do that. I feel like in this day and age with the economy the way it is and stuff so expensive to where if we go out to a fast food restaurant it's considered splurging anymore, that I didn't think it was right to charge. And I'm frankly doing it because I love the project, and I love watching old wrestling and enjoying Gorilla Monsoon and Heenan banter back and forth, and be able to put that in a video game and have it play out while you're doing the matches that I've done so far has been fulfilling. So, but I wanted to just make the project, all in all. When the B4G era situation began, which was what gave me the start in this when it was originally promised, and depending on who you talk to and how this video plays out, you know, you could be the judge of that. I was excited for that, and it was clear to me after it fell through that if I wanted to make it, I should probably try to learn how to do something about it. So I did, and that's something that some of these guys in the community will be really grouchy about. Like if you ask them a question, they're all like, well, if you don't like it, do it yourself. Or if you have a criticism about what they're doing. And that shouldn't be what it is. It should be, you know, people trying to help each other and make this community grow, and not just ostracize it to the point to where, you know, we've got 15 different websites and everybody has a different agenda to either take down 2K or be a celebrity and make money off people and basically treat it like a second job. And that's not what it's about. It should be for the love and passion. And again, somewhere along the way we lost that. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to watch this video, and hopefully some of you guys that supported these people that maybe didn't know about any of this stuff in the video, that maybe you think twice about, you know, who we give money to and who we just kind of let slide sometimes.
At the moment, this project is set to be released to the Modding Militia. It's a smaller group with a website that this channel helped with so that people would have an alternative to having be part of some of the things discussed in this video. Consider joining the website or Discord if you're into modding your wrestling video games. Modding should be fun and about having fun. Somewhere along the line of this story, that became lost on a majority of those involved. This story is a cautionary tale of what happens when you let an unchecked group of pseudo-celebrities determine what is and what isn't okay in a community that they are running for profit. The answer to what is and isn't okay is always going to revolve around how much monetary gain can be pulled from it. And if the worst people possible happen to be around, that is just part of the business. That doesn't sound like fun to me. For me personally, I would find it more fun to download Randy Savage as a dragon, without dealing with people doxing minors and random offenders running amok. But maybe that's just me. Speaking of me, this is me. I'm Mr. Hartgrave, and I wanted to not only do the narration on this video, but also come out and just talk directly about my experiences with the wrestling video game community, which is a community that I made content for about a year on my YouTube channel. So I have a couple of YouTube channels myself. I've done narration, I've narrated a couple of videos on the GrappleVision channel, which have been a blast to do. This one no different. I learned a lot of stuff that honestly did not shock me. None of this was shocking to me because, like I'd said, I had been covering wrestling, a wrestling game, the AEW Fight Forever game. And I've met some great people, one of them being GrappleVision. The people that run this channel, fantastic. Met them through doing my content for AEW Fight Forever. But the majority of people that were frequenting my content and attacking me, for lack of a better word, they were cancerous, they were infectious. I didn't have any serious issues as far as like having to get the authorities involved, but I knew of people who did. There were moderators who had death threats levied at them around this game. It was in general just a very unpleasant community to interact with. So I wanted to come out and just say, if you think any of this sounds crazy, if you think it sounds far-fetched, I think it sounds perfectly normal in my experience. If you like documentaries like the one you just watched, then I want to recommend my channel to you. They're right here, Mr. Hartgrave from Parts Unknown, and I have been putting out some documentaries. But if documentaries about wrestlers aren't your thing, then I also have my first channel down here, Mr. Hartgrave, and that one is going to be focused on video games and has been focused on video games for about 4 years now. And watch that space, because it's funny that this kind of hit my desk and they asked me to do this voiceover, because I'm about to start up a series of videos where I'm going to cover interesting retro game mods. First game that I'm going to cover in that series is actually going to be the Berries mod of Resident Evil, which I thought would be a really good place for me to start since I'm into horror games, and that's kind of the whole vibe around this channel that I run. So check that out if you're into video games or wrestlers or documentaries or just cool stuff. And make sure you subscribe to this channel as well right here on GrappleVision. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and let us know what you want us to do when we get there. Make sure you check out more videos on GrappleVision as well. In fact, there's a really cool video on here that you probably haven't watched about the High Crusade, which is a really cool rock band that was made up of some famous wrestlers that are probably going to be in the news a lot coming up soon. So check out that video on the High Crusade. We're going to put on the screen now some videos that you should watch. That High Crusade video, maybe one of my videos, maybe a link to my channel. I don't really know what he's going to put here. Like and subscribe to everything, all the channels. This is the end of the video.